Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you actually lead and communicate when you're managing a large ad budget, building a unicorn company, trying to hold your team together at the same time? Well, today we're going to be diving into an incredible conversation with an incredible leader about all of these different types of issues and ideas. If you've ever felt overwhelmed trying to scale your business, lead your team, or sometimes just simply cut through the noise with your message, this conversation is for you. Our guest today, I've been looking forward to this interview for some time, is Borja Cuan, the co-founder of Four15 Digital, and an incredible mind in digital marketing. He's helped build multiple companies, managed giant amounts in ad spend, leads with clarity, empathy, and execution. So today we're going to talk about what it takes to communicate when everything around you is changing fast, when the algorithms are changing, and how do you lead with your influence in a world that's louder than ever. Thank you so much for spending some time on the Speak with People podcast, Borja.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Looking forward to our conversation, and thanks for a very generous introduction.
Absolutely. So, one of the things we do for our guests is I'll send that, in a recording if you want to share it with your family or friends, or, just if sometimes people need a reminder.
I can't get enough of those reminders. So this one, I'm gonna clip it and just mass email it to everybody in my network.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's been great to connect with you. Maybe for our listeners, share a little bit more of your story, who you are, what you do, what's got you to this place in your leadership.
Yeah. So I started in the digital marketing space many years ago in 1998, right out of college. I interviewed at an internet startup company by the name of BeFree.com, which was one of the first affiliate marketing technology and services companies. And I interviewed them not because I was seeking a job in digital marketing, frankly, or internet marketing. It just happened to be that the recruiter that I was working with said, "Hey, there's this cool startup that's hiring, and we think you'd be a good fit." So I ended up taking that interview and not getting the job that I applied for. They called the recruiter and said, "Hey, he didn't qualify for the job that he applied for, but we think we have another position that he would be suited for. Is he open to coming back and interviewing for that job or that role?" And I said, "Sure." I told the recruiter, I said, "Sure." It sounded like a great company. I interviewed them. I knew I didn't do great in that interview. I also felt like I was probably a few years underqualified. So my hope was that I would just get in the door and learn and sort of get better and then move to that level. So I ended up interviewing for that more junior position and got the job. And from there, the rest is history. I ended up staying at that company for 8 years through a lot of change. When I joined, they were private. I was number 29. A year after I joined, they filed IPO. So I was part of sort of an initial public offering, which I'd never experienced. And at that time, back in 99, it was a big deal.
Mm.
And then after that IPO, the company acquired, uh, or excuse me, the company was acquired by a larger media entity. And then that media entity acquired our competitor and they merged the two brands. So through this, I had just gained so much experience. I was surrounded by a lot of very bright people, a lot of great leaders who I ended up sort of connecting with and asking them to become mentors of mine. And they did take me under their wing, and I took advantage of that and really learned a lot from them. Um, and I also had a lot of opportunities there where I was growing and giving, sort of getting more responsibility and learning a lot about the business and, international expansion, product expansion, and all of
Wow.
these things. And so for me, those 8 years were to date, outside of starting my own agency, the most fulfilling and rewarding professionally. And so from there, I decided to move out west. That was an East Coast based job, Boston, and I decided to move out west and continue my career in digital marketing, and ended up working for another company for 6 years. It was an independent ad network, one of the largest ad networks in the world, and stayed there for 6 years and overseeing their performance marketing business. And then left that company, did some consulting and some affiliate marketing, and then ended up working for an in-house growth team for a company based in San Francisco. And that's where I ended up meeting my business partner, my current business partner, and we overlapped there for 2 years. And then I left that company. And then shortly after I left, we sort of got together and decided to start 415 Digital, which is the agency that I co-founded and that is now 8 years old.
Wow. 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 So going way back to 1998, I'm under the opinion or idea that all of us in 1998 had so much more patience because we had to wait for internet pages to download and open.
And how about we had to wait when you're using AOL for the dial-up, right? Like you
Right.
actually had to like connect to the internet, and there was like a process. It'd be like ding ding ding, and then it would ring and ring, and you're like, okay, and then you'd hear the crash sound. And
Yep.
no, I mean, it is a very different time. I mean, we're talking about the beginnings of the internet. Like this was, I mean, 1998 is a long time ago, right? And so a lot of people didn't have the same expectation with respect to this instant, right, gratification. Whether it's calling Uber or, accessing the internet, experiencing latency or just not very fast speeds. Like people are just like they didn't have to, they had a lot more understanding. It wasn't something that they were accustomed to, so they didn't know any better. But yeah, I would say fast forward 27 years, whatever that is, 1998 to 2025, it's a very different world, right? And I think the expectations are different. And in some ways, that's good. In some ways, it's bad, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, 1998, all of this, flooding into the world with the internet and digital marketing and all of those kind of things. I mean, just unleashed this, amazing newness. You being in this industry, for all of these years, do you think we'll see, something as monumental as that again? I mean, is AI, are some of these things that are coming as monumental as, what we saw in the late 90s there with the influx of everything?
I think it could. I mean, AI is a big deal, right? It definitely is very nascent, but already making a huge impact in the way people do business, right? So I think, will it be as big? I don't know, but it definitely has a potential to be disruptive in many ways, mostly in good ways. Maybe some would perceive it as bad ways as well, depending on who you ask. Um, we view AI as an agency as additive, not subtractive.
Mm,
So, in fact, we are not concerned with it in the short term. I mean, I can't speak for the long term, but basically, we're viewing it and sort of talking to our team about it in a way that is, hey, let's embrace it. Let's build it into some of our processes. Let's use it in a way that allows us to become better at what we do, more efficient, um, and not resist it, right? I think you resist something like this, you're going to be left behind,
mm.
and it's going to become a major disadvantage as a business. So I'm not worried necessarily in the short term of it, um, you know, eliminating jobs that we have. But I see a potential in the future where absolutely, in some cases, you might your value is much lesser now that we have these tools available to us. But in the short term, it's totally additive.
Yeah. So you've been, on the front end of some founding, those kind of big steps of like taking, something that wasn't there to something that's now there. I think the average leader, I talk to a lot of leaders, they want to start something someday. They want to, but there's just so many barriers. What advice would you give them as they're getting ready to, to try to get past those barriers to, start something new, found something, be kind of on the front end of that?
I mean, I always try to talk people out of starting a business, because I want to kind of test them to see if they're willing to deal with the pain and suffering that will await, right? I think what I would
Yes.
tell people is that it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be as glamorous as you might think from looking at it on the outside. I think a lot of times people see, um, a lot of successful people that were entrepreneurs, and they're sort of tuning in when those people have achieved success. But they really should tune in and really pay attention and dig deep into the early stages
Mm.
when it was tough, right? When they were raising money and they got rejected every time, or when they couldn't retain customers, or their employees were leaving, or the economy was hurting their business, or they had lawsuits, and all of these things that are potential scenarios in having a business, right? So I would say, if you are willing to understand that having a business won't be easy, but if you focus on the why you did it to start with, which should provide you a lot of motivation, inspiration, and fulfillment, then you will enjoy the journey. For me, I really like the challenge, and I like the reward of creating jobs for people, and upskilling people, and having employees who leave my agency 10 times better than when they started, because they've learned
Wow.
so much and now they're worth so much more in the marketplace when they get their next job, or they go on and they start their own agency, or a client who has worked with us and because of the partnership has achieved record results and becomes a referral for us, and all of these great things that happen on the inside and outside, that sort of are why we do what we do and what keeps us motivated, right? There's obviously a financial benefit, but it's a lot of these like wins along the way, whether it's on the employee side or client side, that to me are what I'm after and what keep me sort of able to endure some of the not so fun stuff of being a business owner. So if you can focus on that and say, okay, why do I do this, or why am I doing this, or why is it worth it to me, then I think it's going to get you through a lot of the difficult times. And being in business is, a lot of things are not so fun, but to me, I have a mentality of, I embrace the good and the bad.
Mm.
So the bad stuff I don't consider bad. I just say, this is what having a business is. It's not going to be fun, and you're going to get days where it's unfair, but that's part of what it is to be a business owner. It's part of the story, it's part of the journey. So if you allow yourself to not be distracted with the things that you don't control, and you're able to focus on the things that you control in life, personally or professionally, um, I think you're in a really good place. It allows
Wow.
your mind to be clear and focused.
Yeah, that's powerful. Oh, that's powerful. What do you think are some of the, maybe in your own life, or in other founders' journeys, the kind of some of the communication mistakes that we make in starting something and founding something, and what are some of those mistakes that, ooh, if we could just pivot from them, they would really save us a lot of that pain.
And you said communication.
Yeah, the communication mistakes.
Um, I mean, I think when you have a business, the way I think of my business is I hire people. I have employees, I have clients. So, it's very important as a leader to understand that your employees are so important to the success of that business that if you don't invest the time in developing relationships with those people and understand that each person is unique and has different goals and objectives, and it's really important as a leader for you to understand what those goals and objectives are. Um, and provide support and sort of a direction, right? So I really consider leadership a lot to be, and as you scale, we're still a smaller company with 25 employees. So I, as a founder, have no excuse not to know each of those 25 employees, right? If I were at 1,000 people, that would not be realistic. But when you're small, in this case, our head count is small. I find that if I were so removed from my team, it wouldn't be right because we're small. And because we're small, I feel like I should be accessible. So we also have people that manage, right? So I'm not the only person, but I think when I say leaders, I'm talking about managers. It's really important to invest the time in the team. And that's really in building relationships with them, deep connections, understanding what motivates them, making sure that you're clear on what their goals and objectives are for themselves, and then you working with them on creating a plan for them to achieve those, and
Oof.
not just creating a plan, but along the way checking in with them to make sure that they're progressing towards that. And if they are not, being very clear on where the gaps are. So I think it's important for us to be very sort of direct and clear with them when communicating, hey, you have this goal, we're 2 months into the plan and you're actually falling behind in these areas. We need to work together to improve so that we can close the gap and we can hit your goal. Because if at the end of the 6 month period you're still behind, we're not going to have achieved what we had said we were going to achieve. So it's a lot of, you know you just, a lot of times I think business owners, they're focused so much on the customer and growing revenue and maintaining profits that sometimes they forget that you need to sometimes take a step back from the business and spend time with the team and
Mm.
do training and mentorship and coaching. Because if it's every day, hey, we got to, what do we do, what's the production, are we working on this, what are we working with that, we're not really reflecting and sort of thinking about other things that really are important to people's overall quality of life at the company.
Wow. Wow. So important. What have you learned about you have a partner?
Mhm.
What have you learned about how to keep those lines of communication open between you and the partner? I can imagine there have been times where, you start dealing with higher numbers, you start dealing with new employees, you start dealing with, like that list of stuff you mentioned,
Yeah.
earlier that could go wrong. What's that communication process, that leadership process been like with your partner?
I would say, just to be clear, I consider communication to be the single most important skill set that one can
Mm,
develop.
mm,
The ability to communicate is so important in life that I would invest a lot in making sure that I'm a good communicator, and that could mean a lot of different things, right? When you have a business partner, I think what's really important is to be very clear on defining roles and responsibilities and actually defining a job description. I consider a marriage in business no different than a marriage in personal life. Like, I think you have to be aligned that each of you has a role for the business and that has to be written out, no different than a regular job description that you hire for. And then each of us need to sort of sit down and make sure that we agree with each of those job descriptions. Like, this is the value I'm bringing to the business, and this is the value you're bringing. And we each have goals that we need to deliver for the business. And then it's really it's a lot of effort to keep us accountable, but that requires a lot of communication, frequent communication, but it also requires us to hold each other accountable to the things that we signed up for.
mm,
So I think like that is something that I didn't really know that kind of when I started a business, that we had to be really clear with some of those job descriptions. I kind of was a bit more casual, though I wasn't casual about how I built the infrastructure for the business in terms of the operations and legal, accounting, human resources, compliance, all of those things. I was very sort of very disciplined about in creating the appropriate infrastructure to support the business, which I think a lot of people overlook, and they're like, "Oh, just get going," right? I actually invested in that. Where I kind of didn't invest enough is really just stepping back and saying, "Hey, what are each of our roles?" We kind of just jumped right into it. So I think it's really important to start with that, and then do a really good job of sort of communicating with each other and periodically sitting down and just writing things down, and what are the goals and how did we do against those goals. Okay, we didn't do it. What are the next set of goals that we have? Where do we want to go with this business? And sort of, and that requires time.
Yep.
And it's very easy to forget to do these things because you're so caught up in just how are the clients doing? How are the employees doing? Like, are we hitting the revenue targets? Are we retaining our customers? Are we retaining our employees? So you kind of get caught up in the day-to-day operations of the business, which are important. Sometimes neglect sort of like taking a step back, like I said earlier, and just
Right.
reflecting and trying to make sure that you're optimizing things.
Boy, that's so important. Yeah. The pace of trying to figure out how to make sure the business is running. Sometimes we can get in that rut of forgetting, oh, wait a minute, we've got to make sure we're aligned. And it takes work to be able to do that. Talk to us a little bit about pressure. I mean, because as the numbers begin to rise, the pressure can rise with it. What's it like leading, with that kind of pressure? Do you see it as pressure? Are there ways to kind of relieve that kind of pressure? And, when the dollar amounts just kind of keep going and going and going.
Yeah, there's pressure. I mean, we're on track to manage about $280 million in ad
Jeez.
spend for the clients that we manage in 2025, which is not insignificant. And every client we work with is very direct response oriented. So that means that they are all looking for a very specific action to take place. In our world, that would be a lead, a sale, some very sort of, I would say, revenue generating event. So
Yep.
our clients aren't interested in people viewing ads or clicking on ads. They actually want people to take action. If you're selling a product, they want you to buy it. If they're asking you to sign up for a demo, they want you to sign that, complete the lead form. So, and we're in a business that's very easily measured. We can't hide behind anything because everything we do is tracked,
Right.
and it all ties back to revenue. So we're measured based on return on ad spend, cost to acquire a customer, whatever that metric is for the business. So we are constantly under pressure to deliver for our clients, and the bar does not get lower, it gets higher, right? So I think for us, we just operate in an environment that's hyper competitive. It's very measurable numerically. um, Clients have a very high expectation in terms of the production, right? In terms of hitting goals. A lot of the businesses that we work with, frankly, they're under a lot of pressure to grow, right? And that pressure trickles down to us as one of their providers to deliver on that growth because we're a growth engine for them. So we're managing their advertising dollars against, the platforms we're buying on. So our job is to, like no different than a financial advisor, you want to see a return on your money that they're
Yep.
managing. We have to deliver a return in the advertising dollars that we're managing for our clients. And so the pressure that they have to grow year over year or to hit quarterly numbers in terms of number of customers or revenue or profit comes to us, and we have to deliver on that. And if we don't, the likely outcome is that we will get fired. Um, so I don't really view it as pressure. I just view it as that's the world in which we operate. And in order for us to retain customers, we need to do two things, which is we need to deliver performance and we need to have very good relationships. It's not one or the other, it's really both. And performance is probably more important than relationships, but having a relationship with that customer really matters, especially during tough times, right? So if we miss a quarter, they will have more empathy because of our relationship being so good. But if our relationship is not good and we miss a quarter in terms of performance, they have no incentive to keep us around. So I think, for us, it's pressure. I think what I tell the team in terms of dealing pressure, because they're on the front lines delivering the service, I'm just behind the scenes. I'm not really
Right.
important. They're the ones that are important, working with the customer, doing the work, communicating with the customer. As I say, guys, focus on the areas you can control and do those excellent.
Mm,
If you don't control it, don't worry about it, right? I want you to define the areas that we can influence and control, and let's be A plus in those areas, right? And you don't control the economy, the political situation. You don't control what the goals are. The client dictates those. You might have an opinion on what they should be because you are one of the people that influences that. But at the end of the day, focus on the things you can control, which is every interaction you have with the customer, make it meaningful. Be
mm,
prepared,
mm.
right? Understand what the success metrics are. Do an excellent job of communicating. Work hard, right? Check in with the client every day. Give them some update, right? Celebrate the wins along the way, right? There are all of these things that we can be excellent at that doesn't require us to rely on the customer. And if we do those really well, then hopefully the outcomes are really good. And if they're not, at least we did the best we could in the areas that we had total control over.
Wow. Wow. That's so good. Especially in the client relationships. So your team who then is, managing that client relationship is going, do you guys have is there an internal game plan or an expectation for how much your sales team or project team or however your internal verbiage is for them, how much they communicate, what kind of communication, all those different kind of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do. We're very, I would say, disciplined and formal in the way that we approach processes, and we try to not be so specific where we're telling you what to do,
Mm.
but we're basically saying we want you to follow what we have found to be successful, not based on opinion, but based on experience. So, our client services team, yeah, we do give them a lot of coaching in terms of the frequency of communication, right? And how quickly they should get back to customers. We should be having a weekly call. We should be having a quarterly business review. We should be talking to our customers at least 3 to 4 times a week. It doesn't have to be long conversations. It could be a quick update, right? But that there should be this constant flow of communication. And we should be really good. We should be concise. We should only be communicating things that they care about. And if they don't care about it, we shouldn't be communicating it with them.
Mm.
But I always feel that out of sight, out of mind, it's up to us to be the ones to communicate with the client proactively. And yes, we want there to be we want it to be a two-way street because we do need them to communicate back to us. But again, going back to what I said, focusing on the things that we can control, if we do those things really well, it's going to make a difference in customer satisfaction. It's going to make a difference in the results of our campaigns. So yeah, we do kind of outline this for our team in terms of what the expectations are from a communication standpoint. We also do a lot of training. We do trainings on how to communicate effectively. We record a lot of our client calls, and then we are all critiquing those calls, giving
Oh, wow.
feedback, both positive and negative. Where did you shine? Where are areas that you can improve upon? I do think that communication, and I have seen this unfold, makes the difference between a good relationship and a bad relationship, especially in business. People that we work with expect a certain level of experience when you're dealing with these large ad budgets. They want to make sure that whoever's at the sort of in the driver's seat understands how to deploy these dollars, and they want to have the confidence in this person. And a lot of times the way you communicate is going to be the difference between them believing in you and not. I always say it doesn't mean you're the smartest person, not the but someone who's very sort of good at the communication side ends up giving people on the other end a lot of confidence that they are in good hands, right? If we
Yep.
don't communicate things frequently in a concise way, people start losing trust. So I think there's a correlation between communication and trust. And again, I'm not saying um, it's all about just talking and emailing and things. It's like the right information is what
Yep.
people want from you.
Yep. Wow. Absolutely. Powerful. In one of the trainings that I lead for financial advisors, we I use a research that was done that shows that how important frequency is. That when financial advisors are communicating once every 3 to 4 months, the favorability rating is 22%. And then if it's just once a month, whether it's some type of, like you just talked about, some type of, meaningful plan of a check-in, a update, it jumps all the way up to 71% just by being frequent. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's like, okay, that's like half the battle. Just, have
100%.
a plan.
Just have a plan and know, like, it should be top of mind. Um, I have seen people that are very intelligent and know what they're talking about do a very bad job of communicating that. So what I mean by that is I've been on client calls with team members who actually know what they're doing and they're doing a very good job behind the scenes, but the way that they're communicating it comes across as confusing, or they don't answer the question that was asked. Instead, they answer it with something that wasn't asked. So it's really important for leaders to observe that. They can't be so sort of unattached or disconnected where they don't know what's happening during client calls. You should audit those calls. And I don't mean it in a way that's negative and that it's micromanagement. I mean it because you want your team to be successful and you should be hearing what those conversations are like. Being a good communicator means you're a good listener, also,
Mm.
right? Active listener, right? What does that mean? That means we're letting the clients speak. When they finish speaking, you're waiting a second or two. Maybe they have an additional thought. Like, really be active at listening and answering the questions that are asked and keeping your communication as concise as possible and understanding your audience. Should this be more technical? Should it be more high level? Um, it really makes the difference. And I can see when I'm on a call, someone become frustrated when there's not good communication or someone doesn't answer the question or they're going too long with their answers or interrupting. That happens a lot. Not I'm saying in my company, but I've seen it happen,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Where they
for
just like,
sure.
and that's frustrating, right? And sometimes people are just they're thinking about what to respond while the person's talking instead of just letting them speak, letting a few seconds of silence there. It's not uncomfortable for me if there's 5 seconds of silence. It's, hey, I just wanted to make sure, Jason, that you didn't have additional thoughts. Like, I don't want to talk right away because maybe I'm cutting you off.
Ooh, yeah. Those people first communication skills are just priceless when they have them. Do you, you've been doing this for a few decades now. Have you seen a shift? We've got four generations in the workforce. We've got, Gen Z flooding in with, they're pure digital natives. They don't remember, obviously those 1998 days. They want an answer now. Everything is quick. Do you see a generation that rises above some of these communication skills you're talking about? Do you look at the younger generation and go, "Oh boy, they've got to catch up," or are they sailing? I'm just so curious, your thought from, leading in a team and then seeing the different generations.
Yeah, I think in some ways they're ahead, in some ways they're behind.
Mm.
In the areas I think they're behind, it's around this. I think uh, a lot of people are working from home full time. A lot of people wake up, they get dressed, they walk 2 feet, they sit behind a screen during the day. They might sit behind a screen after work.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a lot of Zoom, which there's a time and a place for, but I think they're not doing enough in person. And what I find is that it's hurting them in terms of their social skills in terms of their communication skills, because communicating over Zoom like we're doing today is not the same as being in a conference room together,
Mm,
uh, where you feel the energy, you hear breathing, you're talking to someone face to face. It's a very different experience and requires a different skill set. I think it's very different when you're sitting in a bedroom or an apartment at your home than being in a conference room with 10 other people, like having a conversation. And I think this over reliance on tech, whether it's Slack or Zoom or Meets or whatever, there's a time and a place.
yeah.
Obviously every
Yeah.
business uses these tools, but there could be an over reliance on it where we use it too much to our detriment, right? Where we don't think getting together with clients is important, and having a meal together or sitting in a conference room or going and doing something fun, that's never going to replace what we're doing. You might start a relationship through Zoom, but you cement it in person.
Yeah.
Like anything else, until you actually meet face to face, you spend time together, you're not behind a screen, you're never going to really get that relationship to the next level. So I think in my observation, a lot of this over reliance on having conversations on Slack or Google Meets, like people abuse it and they go too far with it, where I tell my team, guys, it's a tool, but like any tool, you need to know when and how and why to use it. But what's wrong with picking up a phone and actually having a conversation? Or what's wrong with getting together and meeting in person? We have to diversify the way we communicate. It cannot be only Slack. It can't be only Zoom. It has to include an in person component to it. So we make that a mandate for our team. First of all, we're in the office 3 days a week and work from anywhere 2 days a week. But we believe in that in-person time together. And with our clients, it's the same thing. We're insisting on meeting with them a couple times a year in person, because we find it to be the most valuable thing when we're having time spent in person with our clients versus Zoom. So that's kind of my
It's
feeling on it. I
powerful.
think it can be very dangerous if we take it too far and we don't incorporate some of these other things that will stand the test of time. Who's going
Yep.
to tell you that you're not going to build a better relationship with someone in person? Like it's not the same thing.
Oh, that's powerful. I about 40% of our trainings are done on Teams or WebEx or something like that, and it's always a riot to me when I was just doing one the other day for a bank in Pittsburgh, and about 100 people are on the WebEx, and so you see them all start to pop on, and I'm the only one with my screen on because they're sitting in a cube, they're doing, and I'm like, I will take I take a little lesser honorarium or fee, speaking fee, maybe. Let's not get crazy, but just to be in the room with people, because you're exactly right. Like I can meet them and feel the energy and call them out, and especially on a team, to be able to do those same things. There's just something powerful that happens. It's
Well,
just amazing.
it's so true. And my feeling, and we have this sometimes happen where a client had all the whole team, our whole team was on camera and they turned it off. And I'm like, well, I feel like we should all do the same thing, right? Or I did a webinar like a month ago, and there was 250 people on it. A lot of younger. This was a younger group of people. I was on a panel, and a lot of them were, wearing their hats, their tank tops. Like some guy was in his car, like, and I'm just like, this is not my like. You don't need you have to show up like you're serious. Like you can't just be like taking this from the gym, or like if you're on it, do it 100%, right? Like
Yeah.
and that's my message to younger people is sometimes you think being the authentic you means you can act that way in a professional setting, which is completely wrong. That isn't being the authentic you. That's
Yeah.
being I don't take you seriously you, and I don't like that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And, even me, when I interview a candidate and they show up with a hat, I immediately disqualify them because I think it's disrespectful to someone. And I'm not saying every company has this policy. Some companies might not care if you show up shirtless to an interview. I do. So that's what matters to me, not what you do.
Yep.
But if you show up to an interview in a hat and you just like sitting in your car forget it. You're not getting a job at this company.
Yep.
And I have no problem saying that publicly to anybody who has a different opinion, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so with you. I have coached many leaders in their public speaking skills, and it just shocks me sometimes. I'll be at a conference. It doesn't happen as much. It depends on the kind of conference. But, when a speaker gets up in a hat, there's just something in me. And I'm a hat guy. Like, I love
Yeah.
baseball. I have baseball, like I wear a hat when I work out. I wear a hat but when I speak, when I am on trainings, when I lead podcasts, even when I travel on a plane for business, nope. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm representing my company. I want to represent a leader who believes in communicating with excellence. And as much as I love wearing a hat, it just, to me, you can't
Time and
see their
place.
eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's true. I think some people take it too far with this being the authentic you.
Yeah.
I get this a lot. Like some people have this very stubborn mentality of, oh well, this is who I am. If you don't like that, then that's your problem. And I'm like, no, it's actually your problem, not my problem. It's your problem that you think it's acceptable and that people need to accept this, right? Like there are still standards that we should hold ourselves to, right? We should represent the best version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We should care
Absolutely.
about how we look, not because, uh, only because to me, the way it's like what I say, the way, it's like anything, making your bed or keeping your car clean, it says a lot about you, right? It's not your defining thing, but it is a signal, right? Like, do you put the effort into the little things? Because if you don't put the effort into the little things, then would you put the effort into little big things? Like, I don't know. I'm just using those as an example.
Yep.
It doesn't, you know, it's not everything, but I do think um, that is something that oftentimes is missed in the younger generation. I think they think that hoodies, because they see someone in tech wearing a hoodie to an interview, is acceptable. And my kids, I'm not going to teach them that lesson. I'm going to say, hey, you dress to impress. Like you
Yeah.
dress like you. I want someone who is on the other end to think that you thought about what you were going to wear for this interview and you put effort into it.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to think that you actually cared about combing your hair and wearing a nice shirt and having good body posture. I want them to think that you thought of those things, because to me, it says a lot about how you're going to treat your job, right?
Absolutely. Boy, I love that. Absolutely. Boy, I could ask you like, 15 more questions, but as our time, kind of comes out, I did want to ask you, so when it comes to marketing, what's your advice to leaders who, I mean, wow, like we open up our device, we open up our computer, we're hit with so many messages a day. It's just constant. How do leaders, especially in the marketing space, especially, I think of a lot of the listeners of this podcast, entrepreneurs, young business owners trying to, get their message out there. How do we get heard? How do we create messages that, our potential clients pay attention to? How do we create those kind of strategies?
I mean, I think we're working with businesses who are doing just that. They're coming to us and saying, okay, we are trying to get in front of the people that are interested or are um, sort of within our ICP, our ideal customer profile. Like, how do we get our message out? How do we get people to tune in? And I think it's really understanding who the audience is, number one. Like, who are you going after? What is your sort of, what can you tell me about your ideal customer? Um, because I think based on that, we then have to understand which platform is going to attract those people, right? And then once we identify the platform or those platforms, then it's like crafting the message. Like, what are we solving for, right? What are the pain points? What are some of the things that people want, want to know in order to take that next step? So it's a lot about sort of just understanding the audience. It's crafting the right messaging that speaks to those audiences, speaks to the problems that you're solving for. What are the pain points? And then it's also sometimes, frankly, the offer matters. Like, what
Mhm.
is the offer? Like, why should they take this step? Why should they trust you? Why should they care about what you have to say? So it's coming up with the right offer. So a lot of that is, when we're talking about Google or Meta or LinkedIn or any of these platforms, it's spending a lot of time on ads, right? The
Wow.
ad side to support social media. You have an ad. What is that ad going to say? What's it going to look like? What's the offer? What's the messaging? All of those things. And there's a lot of experimentation that goes into finding the winner. And then once you find the winner, that winner won't be the winner forever. So your goal is to find the next best ad that will exceed performance of that ad. So it's just a lot of testing and
Mm.
um, constant iteration of ads and copy and things like that.
Oof, I love that. I love that. It's come a long way since the Mad Men days.
Exactly. It has. It's evolved. And advertising, I always say it's not digital only. A lot of people do offline advertising. I have clients that are doing direct mail, which some people may laugh at, but it works.
Yeah.
Right. So I always say it's not a one or the other. It's in business, you want to have multiple channels to try to reach your users or your customers, your prospective customers. So think of digital as one of those channels. It has a role, may not be the only role, but try to diversify in terms of how you're reaching users and really invest time in a lot of that messaging and offer side of things because it's going to make the difference, especially in what is a very hyper competitive environment. There's a lot of companies out there, a lot of ads, a lot of people ignore ads. I never click on ads and I'm in the ad business. So I'm always like, God, I'm the one who never clicks on an ad. I haven't since I don't click on ads in the last 27 years. I hate ads, but people do it because we have the
Yeah.
data. So it's interesting.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This has been such a rich, rich conversation. Before I let you go, let me ask you a couple rapid fire questions. We're building this online communicators library for our listeners to be able to go get new ideas. Uh, if there is there a speaker that you've heard a few times that every time you listen to them speak, boy, they challenge you, generate new ideas. You highly recommend them.
Oh man. Simon Sinek, maybe I would say. Uh, he's
Yeah.
he's well known.
Yeah, absolutely. Not everyone is a podcast listener, but if you are, is there a guilty pleasure? You just love those true crime or whatever, or is there a development podcast that you just kind of keep going back to? You highly recommend.
I'm big into kind of like self-improvement. I would say health and well-being mentally, physically. So I listen to Peter Attia, who is an expert in longevity. I listen to Andrew Huberman, Huberman podcast. He spends a lot of time talking about those things. Those are two guys that I listen to.
I
Yeah.
love it. You run into someone, they're about to go to a desert island. They can only take one book. What's the book you send them with that you say, hey, every leader's got to read this?
Oh man. One book, huh? Uh, okay. The book is escaping me. But what is it? I'm gonna look it up. It was a professor from Carnegie Mellon. Um, uh, he was got pancreatic cancer, and he wrote. Oh, Last Lecture is
Oh
the book.
goodness.
That's just something that came to mind, and then yeah, I mean, you have sort of yeah, that Last Lecture. I don't know if it's relevant for bringing it to an island, but Mindset's another one that I read that I like because I think everything in life is like having the right mindset is the difference between I think success and failure. So there is a book that I've read called Mindset. I think it's Carol Dweck is the author. It's talking about sort of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Don't know how beneficial that is on the island. But at the end of the day, like you're in a situation like that, like it reminds me of that movie with Tom Hanks when he makes best friends with a volleyball. But
Right.
like it's the mental game that's going to either allow you to survive or not. So
Yep.
really understanding that, I think, is important.
Powerful, powerful. Where's the best place we can send our listeners to find out more about you, connect with you online?
Yeah, our website, 415digital.com. That's spelled FOUR15digital.com. There we have a lot of information about the company, the services that we offer. We have some great client case studies. And then we offer a free audit for any business owner who's interested in us taking a look under the hood at their marketing program. So you
Oh,
just fill out a form there. It's probably $4,000 worth of value there,
wow.
and we can sort of reach out to you quickly and talk to you about what the audit would be.
Amazing. This has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for just your generosity. Open up your vault of wisdom. I know this is going to be a great help to many of our listeners. So thank you again for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the Speakers Group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the Communication Skills Library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.